All right, guys. This is going to be a really good episode of This Week in Photo. As I mentioned in that intro, I have Mr. Don Komarechka, Cheryl Machak Dorskind, and also our newest addition to the This Week in Photo family, Miss Jenny Stein. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hey, Frederick.
All
Hi.
right. This is going to be a good show. We got lots to talk about. I know you all have varying opinions on this week's news, but before we do that, Jenny, tell us about your show a little bit. What do you got going on there?
Okay, so we have TWiP Family. So
Yep.
it's a show all about taking pictures of your family, which I know you guys are. Oops. Oh, yeah, everybody's doing it.
Yep.
Everybody takes pictures, even if you're professional or not. If you have kids, you can't help it.
Yeah.
So it's just talking about what. There's practical things, and then there's just the experience of it. There's how to. We haven't gotten into yet, like how to store them, how to print. Printing, all kind. There's so much to talk about. I'm really excited.
Yeah, and you're on episode number 4 already, right?
Right, yeah, 5 comes out tomorrow. Well, it'll be already come out, but yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. They've been good shows.
Very cool.
I've learned something from every one of the interviews, so it's good for me.
Yeah, people seem to like it. Good. Well, keep it up, and welcome.
Thank you.
A hearty official welcome to you to the This Week in Photo family.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right. Also part of the This Week in Photo family, Cheryl, tell us what you've been up to. I feel like I haven't talked to you since what, last summer or something? When was the last time?
We spoke in January, and then we had like 20 inches of snow, right?
Oh yeah.
Late at night. I've been really busy. I've been, it's summer in the Hamptons, so I'm photographing. I'm doing my safaris. I'm mentoring. I'm online teaching, and I got discovered by Getty, which is sort of fun.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I have a lot of good stuff going on.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back to the show. It's always good to get your opinion on this stuff.
Oh, thanks.
All right, Mr. Don Komarechka. Don, what's going on up north?
Lots of traveling, and my wife and I just bought a new house. So I think this might even be my first time on TWiP with the new studio that I'm still putting together here.
Yeah, that's a different background. Where's the Canadian flag and all that stuff?
It's actually just in the other room. The big camera that it's draped over is in the sort of the entranceway down here.
Okay.
But yeah, I plan on getting more stuff on the walls and improving this. There's still a lot to do. And in fact, today, it was my birthday, so I said to myself, I haven't done the garden. We've been here for like a month. The weeds are taking over, so now that's done. And my next priority, Frederick, and I know you're going to be really happy to hear this, there's no other big project on my table right now besides launching my podcast on the TWiP network, which will be, I'm going to call it Inside the Lens. And so it's going to take a scientific approach to photography. We're going to get geeky. We're going to talk psychology and philosophy and all of these wonderful things in addition to pushing pixels and physics and all that stuff. So it'll be fun.
That's going to be an awesome show because I'm a big science geek myself and a photographer. So
hey, happy birthday.
I know, that's right.
Happy birthday.
That's right. You see how Don snuck that in there? He's like,
he did.
That was cool. That's cool. Well, happy birthday, man. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the collaboration because it's going to be nice. Like I said, I'm a geek, love science, all this stuff, and you're going to be the network's resident Neil deGrasse Tyson. So thank you.
Don't put me on that pedestal. That is just such a high, lofty goal to reach for.
Yeah, and I believe you can reach it. All right, guys, let's dive into the news here. So story number 1 is about Adobe. Some of the features that are in Creative Cloud 2015. So they recently announced a number of updates and enhancement to the Creative Cloud suite. So Creative Cloud, everyone knows they just came out in I think they first launched the Creative Cloud in 2012. And over this span of time, part of the whole idea behind the Creative Cloud is that they could be iterative about their releases instead of you waiting years for the next big giant release. So they drip feed them out. So in there was a bunch of updates in the latest round of revisions from the Creative Cloud, but the highlights for photographers include, and I want you guys' opinion on this. So Creative Sync. It's a technology that allows you to sync files across everything, all your machines, including your photos, fonts, vectors, brushes. I'm reading from their list here. Settings, metadata, even the stock images that you get from Adobe Stock, which we're also going to talk about on this episode. So all that stuff. Also, And the Creative Cloud, what do they have here? So they have this new feature called Artboard, which I have not played with. There's just a ton of stuff in here, and I wanted to get your opinion, Don. First, starting with you, when just your overall feel so far, kind of taking your temperature on the whole idea of subscription software, and then B, these new features in this latest round. What do you think?
I love the idea of subscription software, and I have since the inset. But the issue is there needs to be competition.
Yeah.
So if nobody is approaching Adobe to kind of make them forcefully put out new features to stay competitive, then we're not going to see everything that I want to see. Even though Adobe has, within their ability, they can do so much more than they've done for us. You mentioned the Creative Sync and some of these features. I think that they're very strong for like an advertising agency or an environment where you have creatives that are all sharing the same assets. But a lot of photographers are sort of a one-stop shop. My computer is where I hold everything, and I'm not necessarily collaborating in a very in-depth way with a lot of other people, so those kind of pass me by a little bit. I'm not going to use a lot of those features. Some stuff, and I don't know if it was released in the I don't remember seeing it before, but in Lightroom and in Photoshop, now when you're doing a local adjustment brush, the whites and the blacks sliders are there, and I think before it used to be just highlights and shadows.
You are right. Yep, absolutely.
And so I'm thinking things like that, they make my editing workflow better. But I have wanted for years for Adobe to have the hue, saturation, and luminance adjustments in that local adjustment brush, and they've just proven they could add any random thing to it. And so that just makes me mad because the ones that I want are not there, and I asked them years ago if it was technically possible, and they said yes.
Yeah.
So I want competition to help them push this forward, because without competition, we're just going to see the software in a crippled form, so that they could say, every 6 months, every year, they're going to roll out new features that we could already have.
So you think competition will help turn the spigot of innovation and new feature releases, right?
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Jenny, what about you? So I have no idea what your level of involvement or understanding of Photoshop is, but I know you're an excellent photographer. So start with that. I mean, are you familiar with Photoshop?
I am, but I just most of the stuff I just use Lightroom.
Yeah.
So that's basically, I stay there, and actually when I read through the show notes, I was like, I got excited about the unhaze, but I was like, oh good, I'm sure I can find one of those.
Yeah, the unhaze, or dehaze also allows you.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, unhaze, but it allows you to also add haze as well, like a fog filter. Well,
right. So I wasn't able to play with it yet though, because I didn't realize I hadn't updated my my Lightroom. So I was like trying to get up to speed to talk about it, and then I was like, you don't have time.
So but, I want to ask you about this, Jenny. So before you continue, I want to get your perspective on the whole Creative Cloud subscription software thing. So, like Don was saying, in some environments you have these group environments, and they can take advantage of all these collaborative features and all that. But you're much like us, right? You're an entrepreneur. You're at home. You have a home office and a computer and all that. Do you care about Creative Cloud, like having access to the entire Adobe software library, or what?
I don't.
Not at all.
I don't. I mean, I don't. Right. I like this. I actually like the subscription idea, because I feel like it gets outdated so quickly that it's nice that you're just can just keep going and keep getting the updates and not have to wait for one whole big update that they want everyone to buy. I think it's great. So I like that. But yeah, there's a lot of features that aren't speaking to me as just a wanting to photograph my family and other families.
Yeah. It's a shotgun approach to satisfying everyone's needs at once. Cheryl, what about you? As you dive in, like specifically, you're running around. Like you said in the beginning, you're doing these workshops, you're shooting, you're doing all this stuff. How does the Creative Cloud and sort of their cadence of releasing new features help you, or do you care? Is it like, I'm only using Lightroom, Photoshops, or whatever?
No, I've I don't even know how long. I've been an early adapter. I have the whole Creative Suite. I guess I get geeky too. I love software. I use Dreamweaver. The only thing I don't really know that well is Illustrator, but I would like to learn it. So I really take advantage of the whole Creative Cloud, and what I think Adobe is doing that's nice for photographers is they're making it easier for photographers to have the Creative Suite just in the Photoshop portion, because now you can do with that those layout boards, for instance, and they're making it much easier for you to create ads, to create your own web designs. So they're taking elements from InDesign, for instance, and giving it to photographers. So I think that's nice of Adobe. You know what I mean? So then you don't have to get the Creative Suite, because Creative Suite is a lot more money.
Yeah.
But I think a disadvantage of the syncing stuff is you run out of memory really quick. I'm like on 98%, and I don't even know what I have on there in assets. You know, you take a couple of fonts, and then you save a couple of brushes, and you're at memory. And so that's the disadvantage. They're gonna, you know, you have to pay money to use it. So I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm still watching this. I'm a subscriber to the Creative Cloud, but I'm like you, sure. I'm a geek, so I decided, you know, I want access to everything so I can poke the tires and all this stuff. But if you graphed my usage of the Creative Cloud over the last 365 days, it would be flatline, Lightroom, Photoshop, back down, and then flatline. That's it. I'm not using any of the other tools except Lightroom and Photoshop. And especially so even for layout and design, I'm in Apple Pages for the most part. So
yeah, but that's limiting. What, you don't use Premiere Pro at all for your videos?
No, I'm using Final Cut 10. So
I've been using Premiere Pro. It's great software.
Yeah, no, it is. Go ahead, Doug.
I use all the Adobe software as well. I used InDesign to write a book. I use Illustrator quite frequently, Premiere Pro whenever I have a video project on, and of course Lightroom and Photoshop.
Yeah.
And I can see some advancements that Adobe really hammers home. Like in Premiere, when you want to encode video, I've got a powerhouse of a computer here. It's going to use every ounce of horsepower you can throw at it to make that happen faster. And they're constantly fixing that kind of stuff. I wish they applied that kind of methodology to Photoshop, because when I'm doing very complex and very, you know, processor-intensive stuff like focus stacking and all these crazy things, it's only going to use maybe 6 or 8 cores, but my computer has 24. And I know that's ridiculous. That's far more than most photographers ever will. But why is it not N-core optimized? Why can't you just divide it up into 24 pieces and, you know, send everything at it? I mean, there's certain things that they're a little bit slow to adopt, and you know, it slows down my workflow. I hate watching progress bars go. That's my biggest pet peeve. Yeah. But one of the new things,
you remind, as you go through that, you remind me of, like, you know, Scotty complaining that he can only do warp 9. You're like, you have this massive supercomputer and Don's like, but it should be able to do warp 10.
but you know, on one software that I use quite regularly, like when I use Perfect Resize from them, it'll use every single core that I have. It'll max things out. So I mean, there's some technical limitations, but I think that making me work faster is something that Adobe should really, you know, put right on the forefront. Make photographers, you know, more efficient, and I think that they do that. And when you see that they've really kicked up the Mercury graphics engine in Photoshop, so that when you're using the healing brush tool, it'll actually show you a real live preview of how that's happening, and that's a helpful learning tool too for photographers, because if you've ever used the healing brush tool around a high contrast edge, it bleeds off. And you have to really scratch your head and figure out, what's going on? Why is this happening? Where is the boundary in which this happens? And if you could see it live, then the learning curve becomes a lot simpler. Yeah. And so that's the kind of stuff that I like to see Adobe doing, and I'd like to see more of that too. It's incremental, though. There's nothing that really makes me say, okay, if you don't have the Creative Suite, you need it now. It's incremental.
Yeah. Well, who would you say, before we leave this topic, Don, who would you say, you know, if you turn, you read your RSS feeds or whatever you do to consume your news tomorrow morning, and it says X company has entered the creative design and production market to compete directly with Adobe, you know, and it's front page highlight news, what company would that be?
I don't know. You look at the stuff that Google has done in the past. I mean, they would be the big powerhouse, but they've really not hit this market, and it's not in Google's market to do this. They're not catering to the professional; they're catering to everybody.
Yeah.
So, who's catering to the professional? Well, very few. You look at the companies that still exist in the space. I mean, Corel is still around. They're a Canadian company, and from like the one photographer that I know that uses their software, they like it, but there's no market share, and there's just no competition from that. Who is going to usurp the throne? I can't even think of anybody, and that's where I'm sort of upset.
Yeah, yeah. And then, granted, on the side of Adobe, most of the software, if not all the software that I use, is always top notch. I mean, there's more power in the software that I have on my computer right now that I will ever touch. So. I agree with you 100%. Capitalism, we want competition, et cetera. But, when it comes down to it, I have the tools, most of the tools I need to get everything I could dream of done if I just spend the time learning it, right? So, I don't know. Guys, let's move on with this. After the break, we're going to be talking about the introduction, more Adobe stuff, of Adobe Stock. So it's the company's entry into stock photography and integrating that into the rest of your Creative Cloud suite. All right, guys, let's dive into story number 2. Like I mentioned before the break, Adobe's entering the stock market with Adobe Stock. So along with the update of the Creative Cloud suite that we just talked about, Adobe is also rolling out this newest service, which will be integrated into the majority of Adobe's applications. So when this is turned on, which it is now, you can go in and, say, in Illustrator, pull in an application from. They're partnering with companies like Fotolia, which includes 40 million pieces of content, and other content providers they're saying they'll be adding in soon. But you could go into that app, pull what you need, and then start your design around it, which is kind of cool. I think that integration is cool. I'm wondering what the panel thinks the future of A, stock photography is, because I thought it was dead. And then B, Adobe moving to grab even more of your creative mindset. Cheryl, you want to go first? What do you think? So, stock photography?
Well, yeah, it's interesting because I just signed with Getty. So, yeah, I've been thinking a lot about stock. I mean, a lot of photographers had told me before I signed, be careful with Getty and
right.
blah, blah, blah. So then I was looking at the Adobe Stock photos today, and I mean, I think it's a great idea for Adobe and for us users. I mean, for me as a photographer, I wouldn't want my photos being in Adobe Stock.
You mean because of the price? Because it says images can be purchased from stock at $9 or $10 a piece, and you can subscribe to 2 plans where you get $10 a month for $50 or 750 images a month for $199.
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
I mean, I don't know. That's really starting to, for me, devalue my work. $10 a picture. I mean, I don't know. So I mean, I'm not in the penny stock with Getty. I'm in a nice collection there, and good. And I think stock is great. I think people need stock photography. So I don't know, but I use a mail online mailing thing. They have stock. Everybody seems to be using stock now. If you have some printed data, it makes sense. But I don't.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that. I don't know. I mean, maybe it looks like what they're doing is essentially doing with what companies like Shutterstock are doing. So it's they have the subscription and you can buy the a la carte and all that. We use a lot of Shutterstock on the site. They're not sponsoring this particular episode, but they've sponsored episodes before, and we buy images from them and put them in the site. Whereas us, This Week in Photo and the This Week in Photo network as a content creation network. And a bootstrapped content creation network, it would be untenable for us to be purchasing, high quality, expensive art for every show that we publish. So companies like this and these kinds of services make it easy for us. Don, what about you? What do you think? I know aren't you in a collection somewhere? Your Snowflake collection or something?
Well, okay. So I have some of my more scientifically oriented images in Science Source, which is a special sort of tailor-made stock agency for that kind of work. So if somebody's looking for an image to put into a biology textbook, they might go there,
Yep.
and the rates are going to be higher, and they don't devalue it the way that many penny stock places will. If it's on there for a year, then it's going to get even cheaper and things like that. Some of those things are a bit more timeless. So I do have some of my images there. I pulled them off of places like iStock Photo because for the kind of stuff that I shoot, it was not worth it for me. And I just went to get a funny example here. This is one of my very first cover shots. This is on the journal Nature, the journal Nature Structural and Molecular Biology.
Yeah.
I was paid $1 and change for this.
What?
Yeah, yeah. And when I went to see how much it cost me to actually get a copy of this, the trade publication, I mean, they cost like hundreds of dollars. They were so gracious to send me a complimentary copy. But so I am not a fan of the stock model. But if you shoot for it, if you shoot something that you know will have a very wide audience and you know exactly what subject matter you can get 1,000 downloads on and you do your job very well, there's a business model for you. And you'll have more people using it if it's rolled into the other creative tools that people offer. What I would like to see Adobe do is take all of the people out there that don't normally use stock photos and entice them to do it by giving like one free stock photo a month to people with the full Creative Cloud subscription that are already paying Adobe $50 a month. And then you have the ability to introduce a new audience. And I will make the caveat that you pay whoever that Adobe pays whoever that image you take, even though you're not directly paying for it. I don't want anybody to be short-sighted here. Would I do it? No. But do other photographers make a decent living at it? Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, it's the same argument. We hear this. I mean, we've been talking about the demise of penny stock or micro stock, whatever you want to call it, for years on This Week in Photo. Jenny, where do you fall on this? Stock photography, stock agencies, inside all of your Creative Cloud apps? What do you think?
Well, I mean, that sounds like it would make it more convenient. And people are using images in so many ways, like all their emails, all their, so there's a huge need for them. And I can see that you would be like, oh, good, they're there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was interested to hear from Cheryl, like what the process of deciding to go with Getty, and it's just because when they were with Flickr, that used to be together, right, years ago.
Yeah.
And they contacted me, and I would read their agreement, and I fall asleep, and then
yeah, it is.
And I just could never
7 pages.
Right, I could never decide. I mean, it's complicated. So when you said that, I thought, oh, I would love to hear your thought process in how you decided to do that.
Thanks. I read the documents. I told a couple of people whose opinion I care about, and those people told me to stay away. So I thought about that and didn't think that was good advice. So then I read it again, and then they picked pictures they wanted, and I really liked the pictures they selected. A lot of them were my family and children's photos. Something I'd like to talk to you about it on an aside, Jenny.
Yeah, I know. We do have to talk.
So they picked a lot of my family and children. So then the problem was, well, I have to. A lot of my clients are, they pay me a lot of money to take their portraits. So how do I then turn around and say, well, they want me to put you in stock? Everything became really complicated. But anyway, to make a long story short, I decided to go for it. So I signed the contracts, and then I went on to their forums. And I already had a whole bunch of questions because I have to upload pictures. And so far, I like the people I've met in my Getty forums. I've gotten really very excellent advice from people I don't know, but sound smart. And I've had some correspondence with Getty that I liked. So I'm still new at it, but I decided that I liked the collection they put me in. It looks classy, sophisticated, and so it's for my brand. It works. I mean, we'll see what happens once.
Right,
Once
right.
I,
No.
ask me in 6 months. But
And how long have you been in that collection?
no, this has just happened in the last month. So I mean,
Cool.
so
Yeah.
everything takes Getty like 2 weeks to respond to my emails. But now the conversations are getting more fluid. I just signed up for some ambassador program with them. So I think my issue will be which pictures I want to even ask my clients to be included, which do I want to keep private, how do I approach models going forward. It all seems complicated. It's something actually I'll talk about in our next, something
Yeah.
we'll talk about later if it will make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is all very interesting because like I say, we talk about stock photography from time to time on the show, and it seems like when we do these periodic shows and take a core sample look at the state of that industry, it's always changing. I think one of the last time, or one of the last times that we talked about stock was when who was incorporating stock photography? I think it was 500px had done a deal. One of those companies had done a deal. Was that 500px, Don, has the stock?
Yeah. 500px now has a stock, where you can license any of the photos that are on there as a stock thing. I haven't experimented with it because I've kind of been bitten in the past, and I really don't want to go down that route. But I can imagine if you have an image on something like 500px, if you make it to the popular list, and it's not just it's popular because it's a scantily clad woman or something, which you always see in their stream, but it's something that would make a good product photo, then you'll get an audience that you wouldn't otherwise have. But there's not a lot of people that are licensing like beautiful fine art pictures as stock. Stock will usually have another kind of a purpose to it. So for a photographer looking to supplement their income, maybe, but I think that if you're trying to license some of that work, you can get far higher prices if you just do it yourself.
Yeah, I wonder where the money is, though. I mean, is the money coming from people like independent content creators like myself, right? And Jenny, and on the TWiP network. Is it those people that are the bulk of the money, or is it the people that are buying the high end, like the Sherrill type collection? They're going to collections instead of saying, hey, here's 15 images of a shot of a tank that I need for this article. Let me pick this one and go. I don't know. What do you think, Don? I mean, which side has more weight?
It's really case by case when it comes right down to it. When you think about the stock and if we talked about this stock photography marketplace in 3 months, there will be different players and there'll be different agendas, and there'll be different value for both people on different sides of the equation. So when I think to myself, well, when I license an image, my base rate for licensing an iconic shot is over $100, and so when I have that coming in, then that's far more than I would get from one person's licensing it via stock. However, at the same time, that same image is stolen frequently and ends up all over the internet, where people just found it through Google's image search and decided, well, if it's on Google, it must be free, and then decided to go ahead and use it without permission. Yeah. And then the whole legal stuff starts, and it gets really messy. But I had issues when I was with iStock. And I don't mean to harp on them. I mean, I'm sure it's part of their idea at the time, but if I had somebody that I thought was misusing my image, I could not get from them the records of who had licensed my images. I couldn't get a name from them. I tried all
like an adoption program or something.
So
you can't go find the original parents of this image.
So like if I knew that 5 people had licensed a particular piece, and I'm seeing one that looks a little bit strange, I can't compare it to the legitimate uses. Only iStock can do that, and then only iStock can pursue that. And then if they pursue copyright infringements, do I get any of that? Well, probably not. Can I convince them to even go after it? Well, maybe not. So you get tied down in a certain way, and maybe that's good because a lot of photographers don't have the time to deal with all of that, and I have some people that deal with it for me, but I don't know, the waters are muddy.
Yeah, I wonder if that goes both ways. Can the person purchasing contact you? Can they reach out to you? You can't get to them, but can they get to you? Like if someone buys one of your pieces and they're like, oh, this is beautiful, I want to hire her to go to photograph my mansion and with me in front of it, but they want to contact you directly. Is there a way for the client to get to you through Getty? Do you know?
Yeah, my name's public. It's public, so they can Google me. I'm very findable.
But
In
they
the
know this it
contract.
came from Cheryl. They know it came from you when they purchased it
Yeah,
from
it's
that
on.
collection.
I'm branded right on the
Okay.
image, but when you sign the contracts, going back to Jenny, one of the big paragraphs is you can't sell similars. So if I sell a picture of Sally's mansion, I'm not allowed to sell others, even on my own. Is my sounding funny?
You sound fine. Yeah.
Okay. But going back to who buys stock, the ad agencies, banking, industry is who is buying Getty. I mean, if you look
Yeah.
at their prices, that's who has the money. Book companies.
It's not the individuals. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not us.
Yeah, or someone's licensing it to use in a magazine or on a news
Right.
program to illustrate a particular story, that kind of stuff.
Or you look at companies like Image Brief, which some photographers find very successful, where somebody looking for a very specific image will say, we want to buy this image, we want to buy it for X amount of dollars, submit your images to this brief, and we will pick one from the setup and pay that rate, and here's all the fees. So if I had an image that said, somebody is looking for a snowflake photograph, and they're willing to pay a truckload of money for it, well then yes, I'm going to put my image in for that, and I will use that as a stock venue, depending on the value and depending on the contract.
Yeah, I like them too. I read their emails every day or once a week. So far, I haven't had anything.
So Jenny, did you say that you had images in stock, or that you were just approached to put them in there?
I was approached to, and then I kind of ran into some of the things that Cheryl's talking about, which was, the kids, like even my nieces and nephews, like I say to my sister, I'm like, well, can I use a picture of your daughter? She's like, I don't know. So that's part of it, is a lot of the images that I have particular kids who may or may not be. So I didn't sign up, not really, I just didn't really go down, research enough to figure out what to do.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I wanted to ask you. I'm curious what. I know it's going to vary widely from artist to artist, but the amount of money that you can make these days. Because I know back in the day when stock photography was in its heyday, photographers were making a really, really good living off of just licensing images that people would repeatedly buy over and over again. So I'm wondering how that contrasts today. Don, do you know? How does that, in terms of income? Are you going to be, if you license a bunch of your snowflake images, will you be buying a Tesla next week?
No, but I do know somebody else that was in that exact space much before I was. And they said, without using any concrete numbers because I can't quite remember, but it's a fraction of what it used to be. And it's not that there are more people offering images. I mean, that's part of it, but the cost per license tends to be going down from a lot of these different venues, and we've seen this for years. There are still the corporate clients that want something unique, and so they're going to pay something really big to make sure that the image that they are licensing is not licensed to anybody else in that same industry, or that it's something of an exclusive. And if you can get into that market, then yeah, you're great. But that's not the majority these days.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I looked at a bunch of, I made believe I was somebody in my I don't even know what it's called, in my
genre
that in Getty, and I could make a lot of money. I could definitely make a lot of money. So,
what's a lot of money? I mean,
a lot of money is like thousands and thousands of dollars for limited time usage of a picture, a quarter-page ad. You're talking, for a month or 6 weeks usage. Billboards, I didn't even look. You're talking about tens of thousands of dollars. So there's still money to be made. It's sort of like gambling a little. I mean, who knows?
Right. I wonder. Well, I'm gonna check in with you again.
We'll see how I do.
I want to see if you're. I'm hoping I'm with you.
You're gonna see what kind of car she's driving.
Yeah, we should. Let's find out. In in July, Cheryl was driving a what? And now she's in her what? So yeah, that'll be a good test. All right, guys. This is a good show so far. All right, here we go. So we're gonna take a quick break. After that break, we're gonna be talking about the Taylor Swift and that Apple Music controversy, specifically one photographer who calls her out for being a hypocrite. All right, guys. Story number 3: a photographer called out Taylor Swift for hypocrisy. So let me read the story to you that Bruce put in our notes here. So Taylor Swift is feeling the heat from photographers after a photographer called her out on her photo contract for her current 1989 world tour. Now the tour is called 1989. Now, our friends over at Petapixel say photographer Jason Sheldon published an open letter to Taylor Swift accusing her of being a hypocrite by accusing Apple of treating artists unfairly while she herself is handing out heavy-handed contracts. And Don, I want you to read us what the heavy hand in this contract is from the notes.
Well, okay, so when we're talking about this kind of thing, first of all, you have to read the contract, and if you don't agree with the contract, then you don't take the job. I want to say that.
Bottom line, if the contract says only people wearing pink shoes and a green top hat can shoot in my venue, then that's the only people that get in. You can't argue with that, right?
Well, exactly, and so I mean, there's a lot of different things here in here. One of them that is particularly egregious, and I don't know if they can even uphold this in a contract, is if you fail to fully comply with this authorization, authorized agents of FEI, that's the agent, the Firefly Entertainment, the artist and the related entities may confiscate and/or destroy the technology or devices that contain the master files of the photographs and other images, including but not limited to cell phones and memory cards and the photographs and any other images. And some of that language that just doesn't seem constitutional, and I don't think you can put that into a contract to say that if there was photos, out of focus pictures of your cat on the same memory card, they can't take that from you and confiscate it and destroy it because it's not their prerogative to do so.
But what if they handed out memory cards to everyone as they went in? Then would that change it?
I mean, maybe. To some small degree, I don't think that they do that.
Made you purchase a fresh memory card before you went in to prove that there were none of your personal cat images when you came into the venue.
Well, but then they can't say for sure that you would use that card, and so if you then choose to use a different card, they are still obligated to uphold the Constitution. So I mean, but that's getting really pedantic about this stuff.
It's true.
That the language in here is being so unfair, and there's language to say that the images that you use can be only used by one particular venue, and you have to write that venue down in the contract beforehand, and it's a one-time use for this year. And so then they say that they have full rights to use everything else in perpetuity from that point forward. And so this is really leaving photographers in a lurch here because, well, I mean, yes, technically you own the copyright to it, but I mean, they take everything else away from you, and you've got nothing to show for it. So.
So why even show up? I mean, if I was sitting at home at my kitchen table reading through that, I'd be like, you know what? I don't think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go there. I mean,
it depends on how much they pay, right? There's nothing in here that states exactly how much that costs.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
In comparison, I did some work for BBC Science recently over this past winter, and while there's non-disclosure agreements and stuff that I can't talk about the content per se, but in there it says that they have a 10-year exclusivity on that kind of content that I provided to them. And I agreed. I mean, that was something that I wanted to do. Knowing that, if I had chosen not to, then I've chosen not to. But I'm abiding by the contract that I'm agreeing to. If you don't agree to it, just don't do it.
Yeah, I agree. I fall right in. That seems like basic logic. But, I understand the other side, too, of, basic rights as you go in there, not to have your camera taken away from you and stomped on. Jenny, what about you? If there was a stomp on camera clause in the contract at the venue that you were going to shoot, would you go anyway, or would you?
I don't know. Does my insurance cover that or no? I have to talk to my insurance guy. Because I have to get a new camera out of it.
Yeah, totally.
No, it was pretty extreme when I read that.
Yeah, it is very extreme. I don't know. Cheryl, has it anything? I mean, have you ever signed a contract that was this binding in your career?
No. I used to work in the music business. I've never seen a contract like that either.
Really?
but look at it from Taylor Swift's side. Why she's worked so hard to be her.
Yeah, it's her image, right? And that's her asset. So
it's her. It's her.
yeah.
She owns herself. I mean,
well, yeah, I agree with you, Cheryl. But let's say somebody takes a compromising picture of her on a street corner. Then it's outside of her venue, it's outside of her contract. I mean, it's a picture of her, sure, but the paparazzi are doing this all the time outside of contracts and defaming people, by taking a photo completely out of context from what it was. And there's little recourse for that because, I mean, they might be in a public place. Now, a concert is, of course, not a public place, and this is where they want to shine and be their best, which to me seems like you should let these pictures go everywhere. Yes, you retain use for them, but let the photographer share them with any news media that could possibly want to use it, and get those better shots out there aside from the ones that are really compromising.
It sounds like this is a chance for another artist to come along and have the opposite opinion. Say, hey, you heard about the Taylor Swift thing? You know what, guys, come to my concert. Take as many pictures as you want. Just use the hashtag band name, and you're all good. Right? That would explode it, wouldn't it? I don't know.
Well, that's
Cheryl,
what happens. Well, younger bands are hungry for people to photograph them. They want the publicity. But, I mean, I agree with you, Don, but just on the flip side, playing devil's advocate, so to speak, say Taylor, she controls her venue. She controls everything about her as much as she can. Obviously, she can't control paparazzi, but she puts on this show, and say you had a photographer there, say she, I don't know, did something. I don't even know what. Say she started making out with someone in the third act, but so these photographers can only photograph in the first song or the second song, I think the contract says. So say in the third song she decides to make out with a girl. So if she can't control, but this is the thing, if she can't control those pictures, then that her concept comes about her making out with a girl, not Taylor Swift being Taylor Swift. Yeah. So I feel like she's trying to control what her concert is. It's propaganda, but
yeah, we're talking about it, so it's
But then how many cell phone pictures would there be of people in the audience that see that kind of thing that are absolutely terrible? That these people are not under contract, and probably by the venue they're not allowed to, but that doesn't mean they're not going to show up everywhere.
Well, that's true too. That's true.
Well, and there was an example, and I wish I had written down that, but in those notes there was an example of one of the photographers who took a picture of Leonard Cohen that was great, but the paper didn't want to license it, so they used this terrible, like the reporter's picture. And that was the most interesting thing to me, but I think it's a part of not realizing that a photographer, like they think it's sort of like in food photography, like you make this beautiful food, you think that's the point, but a food photographer knows there's a lot that goes into getting a good picture of it.
Yeah.
And so I think that in the issue of her not valuing the photographer, like that whole question of she's saying you should always be paying people for their music, and the photographer is saying, yeah, you should always be paying photographers for their art too.
Yeah.
And I think it was kind of this idea like, well, they just come and take pictures of how great I look.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she is paying them, and so that's the thing,
getting
right?
Paid. Yeah. They are getting paid though. They're just their usage. Their hands are tied with the usage.
The usage, yeah.
Yeah. Well, is she a hypocrite? I don't know. TWiP Army, if you have an opinion on it, leave it in the comments for this episode, and we'll get the debate started. Is Taylor Swift a hypocrite, or is she not? Who's right, Don or Cheryl?
I will say that probably this contract was not drafted with Taylor Swift's say-so. I mean, this probably completely it did not involve her whatsoever. But now that it's in the public eye, I think that it is, and I think that it's in her best interest to take some sort of action against this. To stand up and say, okay, this is why it is the way it is, and not to stand behind her representatives, because this is directly affecting her name and her music, and nobody else can speak to that but her.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Well said.
Yeah, well said.
All right, guys, let's move on to some listener Q&A. This week's question comes to us from, what's his name, Doug, and he says, I hear a lot of photographers who recommend exposing to the right. What do they mean by exposing to the right, and what are the benefits? Who wants to take this? Don, you want to take a stab at it?
Okay, well, there's two main thought processes here. You can expose to the right, and see, I don't follow photographic rules per se, so I might get this backwards, but you'll understand what I mean. So one is when the histogram is pushed to the right, one is when the histogram is pushed to the left. So exposing to the right means that you will have more information on the right half of the histogram compared to on the left hand. And this is valuable for some people because there's more information stored in those brighter pixels. And so if you're trying to do image manipulation or just image quality overall, you will have a higher quality image. Yep. The other process is to expose for the highlights. And so this is where you try to make sure that the highlights are not overexposed. So the highlights might even fall somewhere toward the middle of the histogram, although, I mean, be smart about it, but just not to push them beyond the limits. Because when you have a pixel that is completely overexposed and it's like bright, bright white and there's no recovering it, well, there's no recovering it. Yeah. But on the other side of that histogram, the blacks, there's almost never a value of pure black. There's almost always something that you can pull up out of the shadows. You introduce a lot of noise by doing it, but this is how I typically shoot. So I make sure that those highlights are there because I can't bring them back if they're gone, and I can work some magic in post if I need to boost the shadows up just a little bit. Now, this is true of my sort of nature and landscape kind of work and my macro work. This might not be the same thought process of somebody that does portraiture.
Right, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, all this is, if you're an HDR shooter, none of this matters because you're automatically exposing to for the highlights and the shadows and the midtones, and you merge it all together. Jenny, you have anything to add to that, exposing to the right?
No, I mean, I think that's pretty thorough.
Yeah, yeah. That was Don just rattled off an ebook.
Yeah.
That was an ebook titled "Exposing to the Right" by Don Comrade. No, that's good. That is good stuff. I know a lot of photographers that they live by that. They live by the histogram. I've never been a histogram shooting photographer, but you know, some people really keep that up there all the time, right?
If I'm doing like night photography, say if I'm out doing a star trail or something, I cannot trust the back of my LCD screen because it's going to appear much brighter than the complete blackness around me, and the exposure is then going to look more correct than it actually is. Right. Then if I bring up the histogram and I see everything just pounded towards the left-hand side because it's all mucky, then I'm going to increase my ISO by a stop, or I'm going to try to let in more light in other ways, and to try and compensate for that, even though it might look a little bit too bright on the LCD because, of course, in context of pitch around me, the histogram is going to tell me a bit of a more truthful story.
Yeah.
I think that's the point there, is that not trusting the LCD. Like, that's what the histogram is like. That's exactly it, what you just said.
Mm-hmm. Trust the computer. Don't trust your eyes. Trust the computer. Right?
Always.
Always. All right, great answers, guys. Let's move on. If you guys have a question, TWiP Army, that you want us to tackle on the show, just visit us at thisweekinphoto.com and click on the Submit a Question link, and you can send us a question or even leave us a voice message. All right, let's jump into our Picks of the Week segment. And, guys, remember, this can be anything that you want to recommend to the TWiP audience as long as it is related to photography. Cheryl, I'm going to let you go first. What's your Pick of the Week?
Well, I picked my favorite app, which is called Todoist, and so it's related to photography because for all us busy photographers, I found this has been my saving grace. It allows me to, or you, to put all like I write books, I teach online, I do mentoring. I could put all these categories, and then I can write down all the things I have to do, and it will send me emails, and it put it on my calendar. It'll do whatever I need to do to remember things.
Yeah.
So it's my. I did reach out to Todoist and told them how much I love their app, and so they gave me 3 promo codes that I'm running on a Facebook campaign. So I put in the show notes to link to my Facebook, and the premium code is. The premium subscription is $30 a year, so I'm giving away 3 half years.
Oh, cool.
So all you have to do is sign up on my Facebook, and you'll be in the drawing.
All right, cool. All right, and we'll link to that from the notes. Very good. Good pick of the week. All right, Jenny, what's your pick of the week? It's your first pick of the week ever.
It was hard. I actually wrote something in and then I took it out and I put something else in.
You're like editing?
I did. If someone looked earlier, I would have said something else. So I decided on, it's a book. I love books. And so it's a book called Capture the Moment by Sarah Wilkerson, who's the CEO of Clickin' Moms, which is it's just photographers who are moms. And the book is a collaboration. I mean, she used photos from all different people in the community, which I just love that it wasn't all about like shining the light on her work. All these people who are part of Clickin' Moms, she used their photos, and it's really inspirational. She just has different ideas, and it's not all, there are all the settings there, and in the back there's a lot of technical information, but in general the book is really, it's not, a beginner could use it, but it's really kind of just inspirational to me and just neat to see, because it's family work, so that's what I love.
Is it a hardcover? Is it like a hardcover coffee table book?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's
nice.
really beautiful. It's really beautiful. So I love it.
I love it, and we'll link to that so people can go pick that up. I think I will pick that one, or you can just send me that one, Jenny, if you want. Send that along when you're done with it.
Okay, will do.
All right, cool. Great first pick of the week.
I'm going to be talking to her. I'm really excited. I'm going to be talking to Sarah Wilkerson on my show later this month. So I'm really excited to talk to her about it.
Give us a sneak peek. What episode is that coming up in? Do you know?
I don't know yet. I don't know yet about that. I'm sorry. I don't have the episode.
It's all coming.
I just love her work. So
excellent.
To talk to her. Yeah.
Cool. All right, Mr. Don Komarechka, what's your pick of the week?
Well, with a few caveats, I want to recommend the one of Canon's newest lenses, and so this is the 11 to 24, and I've been test driving this thing this weekend, and it is a really fun lens to use. It's gigantic. This is probably the biggest lens cap that I've ever seen outside of like a super telephoto lens.
You could eat a bowl of cereal out of that, man.
Exactly.
I'm trying to think of what we should compare that to for people who are just listening to, like, so they can understand how big that is. What does that look like?
If you put two of them together, it would cover Don's entire head.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe even 1.5, right?
Yeah.
But this is a lens that is wider than pretty much any other lens that I've used, and I've always I've got the Canon 24 to 105. It's a great travel lens for me, but I've always wished it was a little bit wider than that. And Nikon has famously had their 14 to 24 for quite some time, and I was very envious of it. So I wanted to try Canon's version of that and to see what I could come up with. But at 11 millimeters, it is a very special use case lens. I mean, it's not like you're going to say, oh wow, wider is better. It's going to make this room as a real estate photographer look so much bigger. The edges get really stretched, and if you know what you're doing, you can kind of resize things and kind of correct from that. It's rectilinear. The lines are straight, but the edges of the frame get distorted just in their thickness is misrepresented.
Yeah.
Somebody standing near the edge of the frame, of course, is going to look twice their weight. But for that, I mean, I might use that for landscape photography. I might use it for some astrophotography, but it's only f4, not f2.8, and that was a big downside for me because I want a lot of light coming in. For a lens that has a front element that is that big, I want f2.8 on something like this, and so it's not there.
Yeah.
It's still a lens that you can do things with that if you need it, then you need it. And it's a wonderful thing to have. You can really stretch out landscapes, and you have rocks in the foreground that you want to pass leading lines all the way through your corners. It's a great tool for it, and it's a wonderful thing to have in a camera bag. If you can afford it, because it's not a cheap lens either. I mean, multiple thousands of dollars to get your hands on one of these on a permanent basis.
But wait, multiple thousands. What are we talking? 2,000, 3,000?
I didn't.
My guess is 2,500.
It's probably somewhere around there. I didn't actually look up the exact price because this is just a test drive that I have from Canon, but. I would say that this would be the lens that I'm not going to recommend somebody to buy, but I'm going to recommend somebody to rent. Go and find out somewhere you know you're going to be shooting some stars, or you're going to be near some water that you can do some really dramatic landscapes with, bring this lens along, give it a test drive, and see if it makes a world of difference to you. If it does, then it's something you should keep. If you can't figure it out, then it's one of those things that no amount of time would really find a proper use for.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Excellent. All right, we'll link to all these products. Don's Canon 11 to 24, Cheryl's Todoist, and Jenny's Capture the Moment by Sarah Wilkerson in the show notes for this episode. All right, guys, we are all the way through another episode of TWiP 419. Jenny Stein's first time on the show. Yeah, how did it go, Jenny? Was it okay? Were you?
Well, you tell me. It was fun for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm never inviting you back again. It's over.
That's right. You're right. I'll wait and see if that invitation's in my box.
Oh, you're like, you know that thing I said on the show? I was serious about that.
Yeah.
No, it's good. Yeah, I think you did really well. You did really well.
Thank
Tell us
you.
what's coming up for
Thank
you. What do you have coming up this month and beyond?
Well, I'm just working on the podcast. It's new, so that's great, and I'm getting the hang of different things. It's getting a little easier already, so that's great. So I'm doing that, and then it's summer. All my kids are home, so we have camp, and then we're gonna go to Traverse City to go to Lake Michigan.
Oh, nice.
And I'm excited about. We've never been there, so that's it's exciting. And then in the fall, I'm hoping to. I am going to Clickaway, which is again like Click and Moms. I was talking about that, but it's there. They do a conference, so I'm excited. I have not gone to a photo conference before.
What?
I have all these kids. I know. I just stay at home with my family.
Yeah.
And so now my youngest is a little older, and so I saw that, and there's some really just interesting people. Sue Bryce is going to be there.
Oh, cool.
And
Yeah.
Karen Waldron. Just some people I really, and Jess DeRock, who I just talked to on the show, is going to be there. So I'm really excited about that.
Very
That's
cool.
not until October.
That's good. That's good. Well, welcome to the This Week in Photo family officially. I know I said it on your show, but
Thank you.
Say
It's
that
been
line.
so fun to be part of it.
yeah, it's
That's great.
gonna be a roller coaster ride. Hold on, it's a good show. And speaking of shows, Mr. Don Komarechka, who's promised his show, but you said by October? Did I hear October?
Well, see, that was originally October 2014, I think.
Yeah.
So
I thought it was 13, but okay, who's counting?
So, like I said, I have no other big projects in the wings that are going to take precedent to that. So I don't want to hurt myself by giving you a date, Frederick, but I'm going to say as soon as I can humanly do it.
Okay, excellent. And what do you have coming up on your plate?
Well, I do a lot of workshops, and so I just had some ones. I purposely built a classroom right next to me in the other room, and I did some macro water droplet refraction workshops a couple of this weekend, last weekend. A lot of fun, and so for 3 hours we drill right down into those subjects. And if you're local to me, you can always check that out. It's at doncom.ca. Just click on workshops, and I do something a lot of people love. Everybody that I've talked to, photographic knowledge, sitting in classrooms. The biggest part of that everybody enjoys is critiques, and so they like to have somebody that is a qualified expert on a particular topic, whether it be post-processing or composition or anything. Look at their work and give them meaningful feedback as to how to improve it, not just in post but in camera. And so I offer online critiques that are recorded as well. So if you're curious, anywhere in the world, you can get in touch with me, and if you like the way that I look at photography, then I can help you along as well.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, and you know how to teach. You know how to get the word across. There's other teachers on the network. I won't talk about them right now, but yes, there's a lot of teaching skill on the This Week in Photo network. Jenny, you're like smiling, like you're like the Cheshire Cat. He's like, you're not talking about me. I know.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I know, Frederick. I do want to say that every person
I used to teach little kids.
Well, every person that's a co-host on This Week in Photo or that has a podcast on this network, we are all excellent teachers.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing this, and we're all sharing knowledge through this medium. And before we carry on, I want to say thank you, Frederick, for putting all of this together and getting such a great group of people. I mean, it's continuing to grow in some wonderful ways.
Yeah, it's fun. It's thank you for the kudos, and yeah, it's growing beyond its britches. So I have to get some new britches for it. So, yeah, but it's good. It's good. It's a growing kid. Thanks, Don. I appreciate that. And Cheryl, what do you have coming up on your adventures? I feel like you're running all over the place all the time. What's going on?
Oh, you did too. Let's see. I'm putting out my iBook on photographing children. That'll be out sometime in July. Doing my photo safaris. I mentor. Starting up with a bunch of new people. I have 4 online classes starting July 10th. 2 on color, which I'm really excited about. 1 on photographing children. 1 on hand painting photos. I'm photographing children. I'm doing a lot of stuff. I'm
You're all
writing
over
a
the
couple of books, and I'm busy. So that's why I have my Todoist to help me stay organized.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of organized, where are you going to be online? What's your website and your Twitter handle and all that?
My website is CherylMachatDorskin.com. My Twitter is Cheryl M. Dorskin. Instagram, Cheryl Machat Dorskin. Just Cheryl Machat Dorskin, or try your best to spell it. You'll find me.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, and we'll link to all this stuff in the show notes. And Don, what about you? What's your URL and place where people can go to land on your work?
Doncom.ca, donkom.ca, and everything is linked from there.
All right, and Jenny Stein, what about you? Where are you at online?
I'm at Familiar Light, so familiarlight.com, and then you can see what I'm most working on is the podcast right now. So you can go to thisweekinphoto.com/family.
/family. Yep, you own /family.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, that brings us up to the end of another episode of This Week in Photo. I want to thank our sponsors, Panasonic Lumix Cameras and FreshBooks, for their support and helping us keep the lights on in the TWiP studios, which are all over the planet. And also, listeners, be sure to visit our website at thisweekinphoto.com. And with that, it is time to take that lens cap off.